Hi, lovely people. Just another video, one of the anxiety series videos that I said I would do. Just going to make it quick, brief, but one of the things that I'll be covering quite a bit, and also starting off my podcast with, is I think the word anxiety is used a lot, and I also think that quite often people don't even actually know what it is. And that kind of gives it, in some ways, a lot of power, the anxiety, because I suppose there's quite possibly nothing more disempowering than us feeling like something, the anxiety is happening to us, and we don't know what it is, so we can't control it, when actually we can. And I think one of the things I can probably quite safely say is I've never met a person who is going through an anxious episode or suffers with anxiety, whether it just be a one-off, quite severe anxiety, or it's something that they struggle with all the time. There's definitely no correlation with people that have high self-esteem and people that have anxiety. But I think it's quite safe to say, and I can kind of throw it out there, that the chances are that when you are feeling anxious, your self-esteem is pretty low. And so if I use myself as an example, I'm actually someone who has pretty good self-esteem. I'm quite confident, but confidence and self-esteem are different. However, my self-esteem is pretty good for the most part. However, when I am having an anxious episode, or I'm feeling pretty anxious, just in general, my self-esteem definitely is not where it should be in that moment. It's plummeted, and it's missing, it's lacking. So I just want to tell you kind of one of the theories that is by a guy called Richard Erskine, who I did quite a bit of reading on with my transactional analysis psychotherapy diploma. Covers something called the 4 domains of the self. And if you're over on our parenting site, we cover this quite a bit. But in a nutshell, there are 4 areas that affect our self-esteem. So if you think of yourself as a whole person, so when your self-esteem is good, your whole sense of yourself is pretty good, pretty balanced, and pretty good. So, and what's that? If you think of it almost like, I like to think of it almost like a pie chart with 4 sections. And the 4 sections are the way that you think, feelings, your behaviour, and then physiologically your body. And when our self-esteem is low, or is not at its best, should we say, and you may well be anxious, then the chances are that that pie chart, there's chunks missing out of it, or there's bits of sections missing out of it. So, for example, you might not be in touch with your feelings. You might not be acknowledging how you feel, so you're kind of ignoring your feelings. As a result, you may be well and truly overthinking instead. So your overthinking section has got much bigger than a quarter. It's almost half or 3/4, and then the other things are suffering. Behaviour links to anxiety. Once you start to feel slightly anxious, you can make that accelerate at the rates of knots by how you behave. So for some, it might be you start going at 100 miles an hour and doing lots of things, which makes you more anxious. Or for someone else, it might be that you slow yourself down and you try and hibernate and you isolate yourself, and that makes you feel worse. So the way that you behave also has an impact on your anxiety, because it's affecting your self-esteem. Physiologically, so whether what you're eating, what you're putting in your body, how your body physically feels, are you exercising, all of that, any medication you might be on, that's all part and parcel of that. So you've got your thinking, your feeling, your physiological, and your behaviour. So one thing that might be useful is if I'm starting to feel slightly anxious and I catch it soon enough, one of the things I'll ask myself is, how's my pie chart? Where am I at the moment? What's going on with my feelings? What's going on with my thinking? What's going on with my behaviour? And what's happening physiologically in my body? Because if my pie chart's not looking like 4 nice quadrants, then I can try and get it back there. I can try and equalise it. I can try and focus on the areas that I might be struggling with. Because by focusing on doing that is helping me get back to that whole self, my self-esteem. And, as I said at the beginning of this, if my self-esteem's pretty in good tact, I'm going to probably struggle to be anxious, to be honest with you. So the two kind of come in hand for me. And I just think that's quite a useful model to kind of have in the forefront of your mind and think, right, you know, what's happening in all four of my sections on my pie chart of my whole self? And do I need to tweak anything? Do I need to change my behaviour slightly? Do I need to do something with my body? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to change my diet? Do I need to drink more water? You know, so thinking about all of those different sections, because again, you know, I'd probably go out on a limb there and say as well, I've never met anybody who's gone through acute periods of anxiety or quite extreme anxiety that hasn't been overthinking in that moment, you know. So again, this is all part and parcel of it. So just wanted to kind of give you that as another perspective and another way of thinking about anxiety, linking it into your self-esteem. Now, I've only covered it very briefly. In the podcast, I will be doing kind of minimum half-hour sessions or whatever you call podcasts, I don't know, episodes. So I'll go into more detail on that particular episode. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight and share that with you. So I hope everyone's okay, and I'll catch up with you soon.